What's up, Switches?
I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Cicero.
And this is Switching Lanes. Today's topic, toxic parenting.
I've noticed just over the past few weeks that there have been a lot of videos and stories posted on Facebook. And actually, there have been a lot of news stories over just the past few years in general about these mothers who have just done just outrageous things to their kids that, or put them in outrageous or precarious situations that you wouldn't imagine, especially with us coming up in the way our mothers were.
Right.
And before we get into this, I do want to make sure I say this is in no way to attack mothers, but we're just focusing on toxic mothers at this point because people always focus on
it's always
the
about the deadbeat dad.
Yeah, it's always about the deadbeat dad, the absentee father. So we definitely want to just take a minute just to kind of look at some of these toxic behaviors that come from the mothers. And what made me really, really think about this was that video. It was a video that floated around, and we'll probably post it on in our Facebook group. And we'll have to warn you, it's a little bit
graphic.
Yeah, the language is very graphic, but it's a very serious conversation, and it's a very serious problem. This young lady is about 21. Was she 21?
I would say early 20s. Yeah,
I think she said her age.
She said 22. Maybe.
Oh, she said she was 22.
Yeah,
okay,
maybe.
She said she's early 20s, and she was upset and screaming to the top of her lungs with her mom, and her mom was like coming at her because when I first saw it, I was like, well, she's very disrespectful.
Yeah, it
but
turned
her
me
mom,
away.
Her mom spoke to her unlike any mother I've ever heard speak to their kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care if she is an adult. Like, I've never seen a mother-daughter interaction like that before.
Right.
And a similar video is floating around with China Black and her mom that's a part of her reality show. And I know some people say reality TV is staged, but some of that stuff is real and some of that stuff is raw.
Right.
And I think that conversation with her and her mom was kind of real and raw. And her mom is pretty much similar. She's one of those mothers who seem to put men above her kids.
And that's a huge issue.
Yeah, and that's a very, very toxic behavior. And you have to wonder what happened in her life to make her feel like that's okay to do.
And the thing you have to consider with those types of toxic behaviors is the fact that it's going to trickle down to other members of the family, the other children in the family.
Absolutely.
When you have when you're living in that type of toxic environment, there are several possible outcomes. Two of those possible outcomes, one is the victim becomes a parent who overcompensates when they finally grow up. They tend to overcompensate a lot. They want to be the parent that their parent wasn't. They want to buy all this stuff their parent wouldn't, and so forth. And then you have
they're fighting so hard to not be their parent.
Absolutely, because you haven't healed from that situation.
Yeah. And
then you have the victim that becomes their parent. So you continue that vicious cycle. All of that toxic behavior, the yelling, the screaming, the cursing, the physical abuse, if there's physical abuse.
Because that's become the norm.
Because it has become your norm. That's what you know now. And so now that's how you're raising your children. But again, you're creating a vicious cycle that your child is caught up in now.
And sadly, some people see that as tough love.
Well, I mean, I believe in tough love. I really do. But there's a limit to tough love. That's going beyond tough love when you're tearing a child down that way.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's a very big. It's not even a fine line. There's a big difference between
that is mental abuse,
love.
and you are tearing that child apart.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make it difficult for them to function. And when they grow up and they try to move on, they're stuck on things that you've done in their childhood, and they need some healing.
You make it difficult for them to have successful relationships.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just talking male-female relationships. You make it difficult for them to have friendships.
Yes.
They don't know how to interact with people. They don't trust people.
Yes.
Immediately they begin to think that everybody's out for something.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with that typical girl that says, I don't have no friends.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't deal with females. That's what it is.
Exactly.
I don't deal with females.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to lie. I went through a period where I would say things like, I don't just really deal with women like that. I prefer to stay to myself. If I hang out, I hang with this person or that person. I don't deal with females.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been said, and it's sad. And it's not just the effect that mother or negative parent is going to have on the child, but also, or the female child, but also that male child that she's bringing up in that toxic environment. Guess what? 9 times out of 10, he's going to end up with a woman like his mother, because
Absolutely.
that environment has become his norm. So it's normal for him to watch abuse every day. It's normal for him to be yelling and cursing and fighting every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
or to be yelled at.
Absolutely. And you know what the disconnect is? They're not being taught how to love. They don't know how to love. And now, guess what? They continue dysfunctional relationships into their adulthood.
And they can't love themselves.
They can't love themselves.
They're
really
not
sad.
even taught to love themselves.
It's really sad.
So, if you're yelling at me and I can't seem to do anything right, I can't get right, I wake up in the morning and the very fact that I woke up and walked out of my bedroom is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
then of course that's going to give me a complex.
Absolutely.
That's
And
going to give me just a complex of just simply being.
Right. It was so disheartening to watch these two videos with Black China and this other young lady, because their mothers weren't just negative. They would even go as far as calling these girls out of their names.
Oh, yeah.
You calling them out.
Vicious.
They were viciously attacking them. Do you understand? And it was just hurtful to watch. At one point, I stopped watching one of the videos and had to go back and watch the rest.
Yep.
Because at first, when I saw it, I'm assuming this young lady is disrespectful. And then I hear her mom chime in, and I caught it. I was like, oh, okay, now I see. But it was still hard to watch, especially with how her mother dug into her.
And she broke down.
She broke down crying at the end, and I wanted to cry with her. It was so hurtful.
And it seemed to be funny to her mom. Like, it almost seemed like it was funny to her mom.
It was, but that lets you know whatever she was dealing with when in her younger days, she hasn't healed from it. She carried it into her adulthood, and she still has a lot of immaturity in her, because she was taunting her. You hear her as she said, and all y'all want my ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
She thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I would never understand that. I'll never understand you digging into your own child over a man.
You know, the scary thing about that, though, is, like, just thinking about how the lady laughed about it, and just watching that, the scary thing is she probably didn't even think that she ever had an issue. She probably doesn't even think that anything that ever happened was wrong.
Right.
Because, I don't know what her upbringing was like, but it's very possible that her upbringing was similar or maybe even worse.
Very possible.
So, if this is her norm, then it's hard to break that. It's hard to say that wasn't right. It's hard to say, it's hard for someone to hear that shouldn't have happened to you.
Right.
Because the first thing they'll say, that's just life.
Right. And
so that norm is just it's so ingrained in them, like you said in one of our previous posts, that conditioning.
Yes.
That conditioning is there, and it's hard to bring somebody out of that when they're conditioned that way. They can't explain why they're that way, because as far as they know, nothing happened to them.
Right, but the rest of us, we can't be so dismissive and say, oh, well, that's just life.
Absolutely.
No, tell that person they need some help.
Yeah.
Help them find the resources. Help them speak to someone, because there's something unhealed about you.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to turn out well if you don't fix what's broken.
And another side of that, and of course I majored in psychology. That's what my degree is in. Another side of that is coping. Their coping mechanism. They may just feel like, the way they deal with what they're dealing with, they've blocked out certain things.
Right.
So this is just my way of coping.
They cope by lashing out at other people.
They blocked it out so much that they even forget that it may have even happened until something triggers that thought. So
I completely agree.
Yeah,
but we
that's another
have to
thing.
be willing to work toward breaking that cycle. We have to be willing to say, well, I'm not going to be that type of parent to my child just because that's the environment I was raised in. You have to really work toward fighting for better when
absolutely.
That's the type. Because keep in mind, yes, you were raised in that type of environment. Yes, that may be all you know. Don't use that as a crutch and say, well, that's all I know, so that's what I did. No, use that as your motivation to say, I want to do better than what I know.
Right.
So, you have options. Don't just get stuck in, well, that's all I know. That's how I was raised.
That's just me.
That's just me. What you're saying is a crutch. Get off your crutch, get up and do better.
It's an easy out.
An easy out, absolutely. I don't know, we have a lot of people fighting with so many different things, and you never know what's going on in that parent's mind while they're being so toxic toward their children. I think a lot of issues that we have today is with a lot of these mothers are so angry and bitter at that missing father. And man, do they take it out on those children.
Yep, that's another part of it. That's another piece of it. It's just, you look like your dad. You remind me of dad. I can't stand you. And, because dad didn't want to be with me, or maybe dad was abusive. I mean, that can go in so many different ways regarding the man. Because a lot of times, an absentee father is not necessarily a result of him being a deadbeat. It can be, a result of the mom being flat out bitter.
Absolutely. Whatever the reason is that he's not there, she's not taking it well. And so now, guess what? She has someone to take that out on because the dad's not there.
Right.
So
and it's unfair to the kid.
It's unfair to the child. You're unnecessarily putting him through so much. And what it is going to equate to is trauma. It's going to equate to a childhood trauma for them to get over in their adult life.
Or resentment. I mean, because another piece of that is she may not even be a verbally abusive mom. She may be a great mom. She may make sure her kids are clean, well fed, clothed, go to school every day. However, that bitterness inside of her may have her, speaking ill of the dad in front of that kid.
Right.
And that's toxic.
Absolutely.
Because you're putting ideas in the kid's head, and with the dad being gone, the kid is naturally going to listen to you.
I agree.
So that kid is seeing one side of the spectrum, and that resentment starts to build, and the older that kid gets, and the longer that dad's not around, the more the resentment builds. And then that kid has this whole idea of who his dad is or not.
Right.
And
it's important to allow that child to develop their own idea of that missing parent or why that parent is missing. It's important to let them develop their own idea of that person, because the more you push negative thoughts down their throat, the more they begin to resent you in the end, because now, she just don't want me to see my daddy. She just don't want us to be anywhere near each other. Because you're not allowing them to take it all in for themselves and get a complete understanding. As parents, we always say, well, this is my child, I'm going to protect my child. And we just don't think they understand. They hear and see everything that you guys do every day. They understand more than you think. Communicate with your children in an effective manner, as opposed to just yelling and screaming and saying, do what I told you to do. All parents have that do as I say and not as I do mentality.
Right, which that doesn't work in this generation.
It does not work. You better communicate. It doesn't work now. I'm telling you, you better get to talking, and I mean fast. It's really important for us to remember a toxic mother is just as bad as an absent father.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're about to switch lanes and end this thing. But before we go, don't forget to check us out on Twitter at Just Switch Lanes, Instagram at Switching Lanes Podcast, YouTube at Switching Lanes 901, and Spreaker.com, and search for the Switching Lanes. Put that in the search and you'll find us there. And also join our Switching Lanes Facebook group where the conversation continues.
Until next time, love, Jen, and Cicero.